Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This week's show, we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Outer Range Season 2, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I'm going to tackle this episode, because we're in 3 different time frames. I'm going to break it down by the time frame. So I'm going to start the furthest in the past with Joy's storyline, and then I'm going to move into Perry's storyline, then I'm going to do a favorite thing present day. So that's how I'm breaking it down. But first and foremost, starting off with Joy's circumstance. I wasn't expecting the whole falling star storyline to be what it was. The moment she came in speaking English, I was like, whoa. I was like, I guess you could have easily learned English, but I was like, oh, no. She's not from this era. She's like, the moment she's like, yeah, I should be asking out where you're from. When you're from, I'm like, you're a time traveler too. It's like, once again, this goes beyond Royal and his family, because as the line of dialogue comes up, like nearing the end of the episode, it's like, it's not Royal's whole. It's like the universe's whole or whatever, right? Which sounds dirtier than I meant it to, but either way, it turns out Falling Star is actually from 72, and it turns out she's been here for 14 years. So it's like, cool, that's not a great sign for Joy, because in that 14 years, it never came back, which is something Royal brings up later on in the story, when it's like, yeah, as long as he's been, like, ever since that hole opened up, he never really, I guess until the beginning of the series, like from he being a little boy and landing in a different time frame from his own, and then just growing up in that time frame and living up until now, that hole never really popped up again until the beginning of the series. Because I guess it's just that situation of, like, is there any way to control that? Is it going to continue being random? Maybe it's interesting too, because there's that line of dialogue from the episode 2 from the church that's like, oh, just because you can't see the patterns in life, it seems like life is so patternless, and could you think everything there is to know about life, but then you kind of learn, like, oh, there's still so much you don't know. So it's like there might be a pattern to this that no one's picked up on yet. But yeah, it's crazy. And what I think is so interesting too, kind of like how I'm breaking this down time frame by time frame, lo and behold, like the people that Falling Star acts as kind of a liaison, because she can speak English. I mean, she was like, when I first got here, they were ready to kill me because they thought I was a witch, because of all the tattoos and stuff like that. Because she was like, I could not speak Shoshan. Like, I could speak a little bit, but because of her being able to speak English, now she's kind of been a mediator between, like, the family that they deal with. It's like, right, we trade, like, grain and stuff, and it turns out the family that they're dealing with is Royal's, biological family. So you're like, interesting. So here's Joy meeting young Royal before he ended up going into the hole, like, maybe a couple years beforehand, or, maybe it's like right around the corner, whatever the case may be. Whereas you have Perry meeting, like, his dad, like, in the middle of his life, which is in the middle of, like, what his life is currently. So probably in maybe his 20s or 30s maybe. So it's interesting how that all works out. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, like, framing device too, of just like all these 3 different Royals and different people interacting with those Royals. Because, like, especially when you add in the Amy thing of, hey, here's Amy, who must be from, like, the future or something, considering she's a grown woman as Autumn, meeting Royal now, even though the Amy of now is only like 8 years old. So it's like, it's funny how that just keeps happening. People out of time or whatever their circumstances may be. Well, it could easily just be like, right, she went back in time with whatever her circumstances may have been, potentially led her back in time, and then she just landed somewhere and then just grew up, hence why she is as old as she is. I don't know. But anyway, circling back to Joy, she's kind of given up on hope, believing that she could ever get back home. Once again, Falling Star has been here for 14 years. It's like, can you bring that hole back? And she's like, no, I don't think it works like that. Because she's like, that's how I got here, which is interesting. Because it's like, how did she find the hole? I mean, once again, it's just in the land. So I guess she just happened to be, it was 72. So maybe she just got swept, I don't know if it was like a Woodstock thing of, like, hippie generation, and she just happened to stumble across the hole and fell in. But even because I thought I remembered, like, I brought this up last episode. I was like, I didn't think Joy fell in the hole. I was like, didn't she just like walk somewhere? It's like, yeah, she just took a trail and ended up here. So that's why I'm like, are the effects bleeding over into other places? Like I said, it's in the land, it's seeped in the land, and now it's like, as I brought up last episode, magic terms, like there are ley lines everywhere, and it's interacting with these ley lines, and it's starting to bleed out. The effect isn't just within the confines of the hole, the void. It's also like spreading other places. Once again, disappearing mountain stuff like that. So. But yeah, she ends up burning her phone because it's like, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I also don't know, like, you know, there's no means of charging it. So, like, why hold on to something? Because it's just going to be a reminder, and just, like, I got to get adjusted to, I might not ever see my wife or my child again, the life I've known. I just kind of have to accept things as they are. And I love the tie-in with Martha, you know, their daughter had it's like, here's a pic, hey, it's Mama Joy, come look, Mom. I was like, it's literally a picture of Joy in the past, isn't it? And lo and behold, Martha does pick up the picture, and you're like, she does recognize it, but she's almost probably like, wait, what? She's probably thinking like, well, maybe that's like eerily like one of, you know, Joy's ancestors who just happens to look so much like her. Maybe that's what that is, but she'll probably might brush it off of, I miss my wife so much, so I'm just like not processing this right. I'm curious to see where that goes. But it means like, even if Martha recognizes that, nothing she could do, you know? So, because Royal's completely unaware of her circumstances. He's aware of Perry's, but he also doesn't know where Perry landed. But it also contends with maybe like the space-time continuum thing working the way that it does of, yeah, it's not like Royal suddenly has memories of meeting Perry decades ago, you know? So once again, time is so, as they even kind of bring up this episode, because I brought it up last episode of like, how malleable is time? Like, is time kind of set in stone, or is it very kind of fluid? And they've kind of like commented on it being very fluid in this episode. So maybe time just hasn't caught up to present day Royal yet, and eventually he'll get those memories, you know? I mean, maybe it'll be kind of something similar to the whole situation with everything that Luke's kind of going through, but we'll circle all to that soon enough. Before we shift over to those storylines, let's kind of shift back to Perry's circumstances. I guess he was waiting until Royal was alone, because he was like, yeah, I probably don't want to have this conversation in front of Cecilia. So he waited till Royal was alone. He's like, yeah, I'm looking for my wife. Because he's just like, yeah, she disappeared off the face of the earth, so I can only assume that like maybe she was here and this would be my means. But it's also like, these portals can literally take you anywhere. Perry wasn't thinking. He was just, everything he's kind of going through, and he wasn't thinking. He's also saying like, right, my family, like my daughter's gonna be fine, like, you know, my mom and my dad are there taking care of her. So it's like, oh, ironically, your ex came and snatched your child. So it's like, you're completely unaware of that, but him kind of breaking the news to Royal about like, yeah, my dad, Royal Abbott, and it's like, yep. So yeah, that same hole you came in through, so did I. And so Royal's like, okay, so he's getting the backstory to all of this, and it's like, wait, I told you about the hole? It's like, yeah, did I tell you to jump in the hole? He's like, no. He's like, good, because I was about to say, I must be going senile or crazy in my old age if I'm like suggesting all that to you, because he's kept it a secret from Cecilia. He's only telling her now, decades later, you know, got children, grandchild now. Now it's like, oh, now you're going to like tell her the truth, and that's going to be an interesting thing, a point of discussion when it comes to present day, but we'll circle to that later on. Perry did also confide in his dad about what he did. It's like, yeah, it isn't just the whole jumping into the portal, like, void thing. It was like, right, there's other elements too, and it's like, right, I killed someone. It's like, was it someone who was the person you killed? It's like, yeah, I killed Wayne Tillerson's son. And it's like, huh. And he's like, please tell me you guys aren't best friends. He's like, nope, never liked the dude. And we find out why. I thought it was interesting. Perry said, Dad, and Royal was like, not yet, I'm not married. And he's like, you and Cecilia aren't married? And in that moment, Royal was quiet. I was like, you guys aren't even together, are you? And it turns out, no, they're not. In fact, who is she with? None other than Wayne Tillerson. And it's like, even Perry was like, holy shit. And he's like, see, I told you, I've never liked the guy. Because he's like, hey, why don't you trade your horse in for a woman like like Cecilia, but of course you never would. And it's like, wow. So it's interesting. So now it adds even more to the beef between Cecilia, between Royal and Wayne, because I'm sure there's like levels to it. First and foremost, they were a couple first, so he probably feels like, oh, you snatched Cecilia away from me. But also, like, once again, the land is Cecilia's family's land, so it's most likely a thing of Wayne probably feels even more indebted to it, because it was like, yeah, that was supposed to be mine, until Royal, like, we have no idea how they split or why they split and why Royal and Cecilia got together. So you're like, interesting. Now that's got to be a lot for Perry. And so it's like, are you going to try and parent trap your parents? It's like, well, you probably want to let things normally play out, not let you like accidentally like Marty McFly yourself out of existence. Once again, the timey-wiminess of it all, we haven't really settled on the time travel rules yet. So it's like, would he like disappear if his parents didn't get together, or would this technically be like an alternate timeline? So this timeline would continue on and just Perry wouldn't exist, but because Perry is from a different timeline, he would exist. Stuff like paradoxical shit like that. You're like, we haven't like really not grounded, but like really fully vetted and established what are the rules to this time travel. But obviously Royals kind of made an excuse to keep Perry around. The people like from the rodeo seemed suspicious of him, because the guy, he's like, yeah, I'm from Billings. And it's like, oh, and you don't ride? Like, how does anyone from Billings not ride? And it's like, yeah, but I mean, he's not a liar. Why would he lie about it? And the guy was like, everybody lies, Royal. And I'm like, feels befitting, considering like, well, the lies that like, you know, Perry was completely unaware of everything with Rebecca and Cecilia, which we'll get to later. And then also like Royal spent his entire life lying to literally everyone. So it is kind of that. But I'm sure there are probably going to be suspicions, because I'm sure there is going to be someone that looks into him, and that's into Perry, or Ben as he's using his fake name, which once again, I meant to bring this up last episode. It's like, I just think it's interesting, because if you don't know, the actor who plays Perry, his character name in Ozark was Ben, so that's kind of funny to me. Once again, it's a common enough name, but it's just funny how he kind of, yeah, I mean, it'd be the same thing as if you were like, for whatever reason, it's like, oh yeah, he's like, my name's Ward. And if you don't know, he played a character named Ward in the Iron Fist show on Netflix. But either way, that's just kind of tangents on what my brain is kind of doing, but it's probably going to cause more issues, especially because they were like bringing up the fact is that, hey, Perry's like, I have anger in me, because he's like, yeah, I killed him by accident, but now I'm kind of like, maybe it wasn't so much of an accident, I have anger in me. And it's like, well, that doesn't come out of nowhere, that's in Royal, you get that from your daddy. So it's like, I feel like that's probably going to rear its ugly head, and maybe history's going to kind of, funny enough, repeat itself in the past, with Perry potentially kind of crossing a line and kind of be put in a very complicated circumstance. We'll have to wait to see, because there's a lot on that. Then present day, we have Cecilia and Autumn spending time together, which is such an interesting pairing, because like Cecilia's still trying to wrap her head around everything that Royal told her, because she's like, right, I'm gonna believe what I see, and she doesn't see the void or the pit or whatever, and it's like, you know, she's gonna be like, right, I'm gonna believe, which is so interesting considering, I mean, I guess she has somewhat of an open mind because she is a woman of faith, but it's like, yeah, it's like, you don't believe in what you can't see, but it's like, you are a religious person, you're someone of faith, so it is interesting. But for her, it's like, right, like something here I can do is find my grandchild. So she's hanging out with Autumn, handing out flyers at the church, and then Autumn like calls out some people, because like, hey, like, don't be an asshole. You see what this family's going through. You don't have to help out, but just don't be assholes. And now she's calling, like, Cecilia's like, right, I need to come back to this church later on. I don't need you causing a scene. It's like, yeah, but these people are hypocrites. Like, why would you want to come back to this place at all? Like, for them just, it's like, right, like, it brings her comfort. And she's always kind of been the person that kind of, like, tries to, like, right, I'm going to let people say what they're going to say. I'm going to turn the other cheek. I mean, looking for Amy is more important right now. But it's just that back and forth between Autumn and Cecilia. Because I think it's that level of Cecilia being, like, it is almost like I'm arguing with like my grandchild, but it's also like I don't know how to fully feel about this, or how whether or not to fully believe it. So she's asking Autumn questions like, right, where are you from? She's like, well, my mom never told me. Oh, I'm taking these pills. It's like, oh, for your ribs? It's like, no, for my head. Anytime I would ask my mom about where I was from, she got very cagey about it, and she would use these pills to basically kind of shut me up. So, and then like obviously she was eventually adopted. Cause I think she was talking about like her mom, and not her like adopted mom. But maybe she was talking about her adopted mom when she was saying mom. Because she made the point of like, yeah, my mom, and then she said adopted later, but that could have just been like the connective tissue of, no, I was adopted, or I did know my biological mom for a while, but then it got adopted into as she puts it later on, a rich family. That was all about, instead of teaching manners, it was all about everyone having their own individual personality, kind of, help the greater collective, which I love Cecilia being like, oh, sounds like a cult. And Autumn's rebuttal of, yeah, it sounds a lot like that church, huh? And them looking at each other. You even have Royal kind of picking up his head and turning to Cecilia being like, shots fired, huh? So, once again, her at like the dinner table and everything, it's wild. So it's like, yeah, what do you make of Royal's whole? And it's like, well, it's not Royal's whole, it's the universes. And it's like, right, she did push Royal in, and he did eventually come back out. So she's like, yeah, I've always been more open-minded to the stuff that no one else would believe. So even like the church, even the Bible thing was like, because Roy was like, why you don't really care for all the religion? Like, why all of a sudden you want to read the good book? And she's like, I want to learn new stuff. He's like, but it's a book of old things. She's like, yeah, but like with time, it's like there is no forward or backwards. It just is. Because kind of the notion of time is happening all the time. There is no like past, present, or future because it's all happening at once. That time is kind of a lot more linear. It isn't. What the hell do they call it in The Good Place? Was it Jeremy Bearimy? Is that what it was? Like what time is supposed to look like? Yeah, it looks like a Jeremy Bearimy. I believe that's the name they called it. Either way. She's just talking about like, yeah, I'm always wanting to learn new things, because even if something's old, it's new to me if I don't know it. So we also got some reveals from Cecilia revealing to Royal what went down between her and Rebecca. It's like, right, she's like, I threatened Rebecca. First and foremost, Rebecca is actually back in town. There were witnesses. Amy isn't gone. She isn't missing. She's gone. She was taken. And I threatened Rebecca years ago that if she would do anything, she would never do anything to take away my because Lewis is the guy. Because that's why I wondered why Cecilia went specifically to Lewis last episode, because he was doing the whole thing of like, and there was a whole bunch of ladies in the tent and stuff like that, and I was like, what's up with that? And it did seem like they had some kind of relationship, but I didn't know what it was. It's like, turns out Rebecca was having an affair with Lewis. I wonder, was it actually an affair, or did Cecilia just assume it was an affair, but it never was? Who knows? But she threatened her, and it's like, yeah, like, if you ever hurt my granddaughter or my son, we're gonna have problems, and basically like cast her away. So she's kind of blaming herself, because it's like, yeah, this is all coming back, because now like I've kept this a secret for so long, and there's like Roy's like, huh, so this is what it feels like, and she's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, because he can't really get mad considering like, well, I literally just told you like yesterday, no, probably not even yesterday, today, like the large amount of secrets I've been keeping from you for years, not even more recently, just years and years that we've known each other since I've been connected to your family. So he also didn't tell his wife about Rhett, who, him and Maria were going to like leave. It's like one last trip into town. Oh, wait, there's Perry's truck. Wait, Dad, what's going on? Why is there a missing poster of Amy? Why didn't you call me? It's like, we tried. You didn't pick up. And it's like, yeah. And he's like, actually, I was kind of hoping you were going, son, because now that you're here, you won't be able to leave. Because he's like, right, you're going to feel indebted to your family and feel the need to stay. With everything going on, there's no way you would leave. Like, nothing your family, they wouldn't want you to leave, but also you wouldn't leave. So that kind of puts a wrench in all of that, especially with Royal being like, yeah, they're coming for our land, or your mom's land, because it turns out that the scientist he met last season, Nia, had put some like spikes into the ground because she's trying to like test what's going on there, which she's like, I want to be the person to figure it out. She's basically under the impression like, yo, underneath that soil, what's down there? She's like, it's just time. You know, why it's that way? Who knows what the purposes of all this, how it can be utilized. But once again, Royals also, I think a lot of these fears about that is the future he came from, where he saw, like, you know, the dig site that became that land. He knows what that is, and he still hasn't told, despite telling Cecilia some of the truth, he still hasn't told her everything. So he did tell her that about the scientists of, hey, like, you know, they came onto our land without permission. He's like, I only just found out about it. So, but it's like, right, finding Amy's more important right now. And it's like, he's not even telling her that Perry's gone. He told Rhett that Perry's gone, but who knows how Rhett's interpreting it as like, well, gone as in dead. But it's like, if Dad meant dead, he would have said that. So he's just gone. So I guess Perry just left up and bounced. So, because Royal can't really tell him the truth, hasn't told Cecilia the truth because she'd be freaking out a lot more. But once again, didn't even tell her that he ran into Red. So, and are we done with Nia? Who knows? The fact is, circling to that, he did threaten her because she's like, yeah, I got all these questions. He's like, well, you left me something. I'm gonna leave you something. Hope I never see you again. We have that. We have Patricia showing up because she wants to see her dear sweet baby boy Billy, who is dreaming about Autumn. When I saw that flash stuff of like Luke and Autumn, I completely forgot it was like kind of like a Billy and Autumn thing, but I was like, because it looked like one of the scenes we got was kind of a flash forward that we haven't gotten to yet, but it was like from behind. I was thinking it was Luke, but I guess it could be Billy, but I assumed it was Luke. So maybe something's going to happen on that front. Either way, they're out for blood now because they see the branding mark on Billy. It's like, oh, the one who did this for you is Royal. So literally, Wayne wants to go biblical. It's like, yo, pull out my flaming sword. Revenge shall be mine. And you have Luke agreeing, but this is all kind of a ploy because I guess he wants to maybe a mutual assured destruction. Well, by siding with his father, he's going to get his father more on his side. And if they can get Billy sorted and kind of out of the way, they could kind of become him and his mom's because that's kind of like their whole deal. So his mom is leaving it up to him like, right, you do what you need to do, but you're going to kind of be on your own. So you got to be prepared for whatever consequences fall. That's going to be on your shoulders. It's going to be your head on the chopping block. Then we also had the ending of the episode with Autumn reading, some verses and passages from the Bible, and obviously thinking back to like her interactions with Royal all throughout season 1, and now it's kind of like, oh, like, how did I get here and why is she connected to this family? And it's like, oh, she almost feels like maybe she's here for a reason and that the family will have the answers. And it's like, well, make a lot of sense that they were your family. But then she has that last line where she's basically reading something saying, basically do unto others what you want done to you. And she closes the book and it's like, so how is that going to go? Are you going to be like, so what happened to me that I never come back to my family? Like, am I really this person? Am I really, really Amy? Or, what's going to happen if they find out I'm not actually Amy? Like, what's kind of happening now I do kind of like, but it could still just be her playing them. It's unclear. Like, I don't know. Maybe she's just going to be like, maybe this was why I was brought to this family, why we are connected, because we are family. And maybe I'm going to try and find my place here. But it's like, are you worried about what does that mean when younger you comes back into the picture? I was wondering about that because I was thinking to myself, I was like, wasn't there a storyline of something that dealt with that? I mean, there's plenty of storylines I'm sure that dealt with like, oh, here's the young you and the old you kind of coexisting in the same time frame. I'm like, well, I mean, that's plenty of things like, I've kind of used that storyline, but I was like thinking of something, and I think maybe I'm thinking of like the final season of Sleepy Hollow dealing with that. Whatever the case may be. So, like, some very, very interesting developments all across the board. I'm really excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.